Here we go.
Do it.
Okay, cool.
Here we go.
Welcome back to Coffin Talkin', where we unravel the mysteries, embrace the peculiar, and find humor in the unconventional world of funerals and death.
I'm here with Holly.
Frank's here with Holly.
Yes, I am. So, how you doing, Holly?
Good. How are you?
Good. Any updates for the week?
I have one update, and it's mostly from today. So the past couple days, Caden has been suffering with allergies, and I just feel so bad because the whole time, my whole adult life, I've found that I'm allergic to one thing, and I think it's either lavender or lilac. We had a bush at one of those bushes at the old house.
Yeah.
Super beautiful blossoms, but we brought in some blossoms into the house, and I just had the most itchy throat, and my eyes hurt. And I just feel awful that he deals with that every year, and it's like a full week. And his is much worse than mine was. Much worse.
So did his week just start, or how long has it been going on?
It's been the past couple of days. And what we think is the cats are losing their winter coat.
Yeah.
So I just feel so awful. But today I deep cleaned the bedroom because the cats come in. They like to sleep in the closet. They like to sleep under the bed. So their fur's everywhere, but they're not allowed in the room. And I deep cleaned it now. Well, now they're not allowed in the room. I deep cleaned it today, and I was thinking about it as I was cleaning, and it's like, I bet spring cleaning was just invented by people who have allergies.
Or cats.
Or cats. Because
who knows?
I mean, what's so special about the spring that you have to clean everything? I don't get it. But it's the time of year where everything's blooming and people with allergies are dying. And I think it's an effort to make their lives more bearable while they're inside the house. So I don't think it's a real thing, but I'll continue to do it for Kate.
Okay, good. And he'll probably thank you.
Yeah.
Does he take any medications?
Yeah, he has like a daily little allergy. It's like a Claritin sort of thing.
That he takes every day, or just as it kicks up, flares up?
Yeah, every day. He doesn't need it in winter or anything, or summer when he's actually accustomed to everything. But it's just when everything's kicking up that he needs it every day.
In blossoms?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, that's too bad.
I know. I feel so bad. Yeah, but how's your day? I mean, week?
It's been good. You know what? I'm breathing sighs of relief because I've got an individual that was in an international ship. So a person went to Africa, finally out of my cooler. A person finally went to Mexico, finally out of my cooler. I have two more ready to transfer to other states, but they're going to be with me for a little bit longer because their services are later in the month. And so they don't want to have them there too early. So,
I see. Okay, yeah. So you had a number of international and interstate.
International, yeah, interstate and not interstate. Just national and international.
Oh, okay.
Transfers. Yeah.
Wow.
And I guess I'm getting. I don't know. How about you, Holly? About getting emails and stuff. But so I guess the argument is now: what is it that produces the pearl? Is it the oyster? or is it the clam?
Well, as we got a text from Mom, to all three of us, me, you, and Scott, on Monday, I think, when she was listening, Monday or Tuesday, she said, Tuesday. My dear family, pearls do not come from clams. I had no idea. It's the oyster and the mussel. Turns out.
The oyster and the mussel. Did you look it up?
I did look it up. And I responded and I said, Mom, have you checked all the clams? Do you know for sure that none of them are producing pearls? Because here's the thing. There could be one.
There could be one. Mm-hmm. And if not, I'm going to plant one in one. And it's like, Mom, hello, here it is.
Look.
What does she know anyway? She's fictitious. How do we know?
Come on.
And plus, why is she reading Wikipedia?
Can't trust it. Can't trust anything.
Can't trust
the very bottom of the page, authored by Frank.
Yeah, exactly.
Uh-oh. Well, that's it for me.
That's it for me.
Then let's jump into this week and let's be Frank.
Thanks, Holly. So let me ask you this, Holly. If I was to tell you how long a mortuary would like to have someone left in the house, how long would you say that would be?
Like someone passes away in the house. How long after they pass away do you want to come pick them up?
Yes.
I'd say within a day, maybe 2.
Maybe a day. How about an hour to 2 hours?
Okay, great.
Yeah. So whenever we receive a call on someone that's passed away, we say, okay, when would you be ready for us to come by? Can we come by now? Or is there a time that you'd like us to come by? Because some people are waiting for family members to arrive. And so you don't ever want to disrupt that at all. So I'm going to tell you the story of one individual that kind of took me off, kind of caught me off guard. And it was a simple request, another simple phone call that came through. And the woman or the man on the other end said, yeah, I'd like you to be aware that my wife has passed away. And I said, oh, okay. Took the pertinent information. And I said, now, are you ready for us to come by the house or do you want us to wait a while? He said, yeah, I'd like you to wait about 5 days.
5 days.
5 days. And the lady's in the house. And so in my mind, I'm thinking to myself, so how do you control
odor?
What's happening? Yes, what's happening with her for 5 days? Because if they keep the house at a 70-degree temperature, then it's terrible. If they keep it lower, it's better, but it's still not optimum. So I just said to him, I said, try and do what you can to keep her as cool as possible.
Is there anything legally that you have to respond within a certain time frame?
No, not necessarily, so long as we're notified of the death. Now the problem becomes, will the mortuary forget?
Oh, gosh.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, because it's not happening right away.
Yeah, we usually like to do it immediately. And so if they put us off that long, I have had some families put us off for 10 hours or so, but never days.
Yeah.
And so when I hung up the phone, I thought to myself, well, how do we make mention for everyone to be reminded of everything that's going on, but to remember this family needs this loved one picked up in 5 days. And he gave me a specific time frame. So in 5 days at around 2:30 p.m. So do you see now what the kind of a problem we're having? Because everything else going on in the mortuary, you're going to forget about that removal or that person that needs to be picked up. And plus, you don't know exactly what type of condition or situation you're going to be walking into. So
obviously a weird one.
Kind of, yeah. So again, the same thing happened. We were very busy and we were just clicking on all cylinders and not really remembering this lady. And so it was his wife. And so I remembered looking up on like day 3 at the calendar, and I thought to myself, okay, I got to remember that in 2 days we're going to pick up Mrs. So-and-so. And it turns out that day 5 rolled around, and at 2:30, well, not 2:30, because she lived far enough away that we had to leave by probably 1:15 to get there by 2:30. And we were loading up the car, ready to go, when we received a call from the husband. He said, I'm wondering if you could give us another 3 days.
What?
That's exactly what I said. I said,
no.
Can I ask why? And he didn't give me a reason. He said, we'd just like her to stay with us as long as possible. And I said, why? And I was kind of sarcastic. And I said, well, would you consider a full 10 days? And I was just being jokey. He said, could we do that?
Oh my.
And now I'm in a pinch because it's gone from 5 to 8. Crap. Now it's 10. Now I've added 10.
Dang it, Frank. Days. This was not the time to joke. Man, I've really done it now.
So I said, I guess, how is she doing? And just in casual conversation, I just asked him point blank. I said, is she okay? Does she look all right? Is there any problems that you're having? He said, oh no, we've got it all covered and taken care of. And what that meant, I have no idea. And I would soon find out.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah. Oh, gosh. So that, I just thought, well, okay, whatever. And then my manager got mad at me because I put in the idea for an additional 10 days. And he said, here we have an individual that's passed, or an additional for a total of 10 days. Here we have an individual that's passed away. We have no paperwork. We have no idea, because usually we have to have a death certificate signed within a week of the death. And so.
And that's hard too, because you don't have a contract with them.
That's right.
Or anything until you have the body.
That's right. And I didn't even know
it's just an additional burden on you.
That's right. And I was thinking to myself, we may not even get this case.
Oh
what if on day 10 they call another mortuary and says, hey, my wife just passed away. Could you come get her?
Can you come in 10 days?
Which was actually 20.
Yeah.
So, okay, finally the day came that we were to go, and no phone calls. So I think, okay, we're go. Let's go.
We're going.
So we took off, and as we pulled into and it was a very nice neighborhood, but we pulled into the neighborhood, and then I noticed the house, and so I just positioned the vehicle to where we could actually back it up the driveway. And as I got out of the car, I heard loud booming music.
Oh.
And I thought,
what kind of music? Like
it was
rock?
Like heavy metal.
Heavy metal.
Yeah, it's stuff that I wouldn't listen to it.
Yeah.
If it were me, it's not my choice of music. So I walked up to the door, and I looked down at the paper that I had, with the name and everything, and I backed up, looked at the address.
Have the right house?
Exactly, because I was thinking we didn't have the right house. And so I rang the doorbell. No one came. I rang the doorbell. Still no one came.
Well, can they hear you even?
That's exactly what I was thinking. So I stepped back to the car and I made a phone call. So I called the gentleman that initially contacted us, the husband, and he said, hey, I said to him, hey, we're here outside of your house, I think, ready to bring your wife into our care. And he goes, oh, I was going to call you. And my mind just went, oh my gosh, I traveled an hour and 20 minutes to get here, and now you're going to push me off. And he said, would you mind waiting a couple of hours?
A couple of hours, seriously?
A couple of hours, seriously.
Dude, you've had 10 days.
10 days. And so I said to him and said, well, just know that we're outside, and we'll be happy to come into the house when you tell us to come into the house. But we're not going to go back. We'll just be sitting outside. He said, sounds great. And so he hung up the phone.
How rude.
I know. And I'm just thinking to myself, so I looked at my partner who was waiting on him, brand new, probably had been in the business for a week. And
oh my gosh.
He looks at me and he goes,
is this normal?
Does this happen a lot? Oh, I'm sorry to tell you, but yeah, almost twice a week. No, I'm kidding you. But no. So yeah, we had a small little conversation. We didn't have cell phones at the time. We had beepers. And so I just sent off a message for a beeper message to my manager to have him call me.
Yeah.
So he called me. So I beeped my phone number, my I guess my pager number to him. I don't remember how we communicated on pagers, but it was weird. So I said he called or he paged me or something, and so I just emailed or texted. Maybe it was a text. I don't know. I can't remember. But somehow or another, I let him know that we're having to wait at the house.
Yeah. So,
whatever. He said, whatever. Yeah, so long as you bring her back. Do we still have the case? I think is one of his main concerns. So
right. Am I wasting time?
Yeah, I think so. So finally, the time came where he came outside, and he mentioned to me we had to have had phones because they were the brick type, the long.
The brick phones.
Yeah, the brick phones, and so that's right because I did call him from the car, and I remembered now. Yeah, it was a brick phone. So he gave us a call. He said we're ready for you to come in, and so we went. Got the gurney out of the car and we opened the door.
How many hours later was this?
It was close to 3.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, 3 hours later. And it was already, because we were pushing 5:30.
Yeah.
And we still had an hour to drive back to the mortuary. And I was thinking to myself, kind of what you said first, this is kind of rude, kind of inconsiderate.
Yeah, it's very rude.
You keep pushing it off, and then you tell us to wait another 3 hours when we're sitting in your
What is 3 hours going to do?
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing?
We thought that it was kind of we thought it was kind of a cult thing that was happening. So anyway, he opens the door and the music just rolls out, and he yells up to his son and he says, "Turn the music down. We don't want the cops here again." So apparently someone's been turning him in for the loud music. So we're walking in, but he has.
I wish that the cops. I wish that the cops had done a walkthrough of the house. Said, "You have a dead body here."
I don't mind her. She's just in deep sleep.
Don't mind her. They're picking her up in 8 days.
Yeah, they're busy. So as we're walking into over the threshold into the house, he's got it cordoned off, so you can't really see anywhere else in the house. But he's got like a visqueen that's lining. What? Yeah, a visqueen that is lining both sides of the hallway. And I think the house is larger than what I'm seeing, because I'm seeing. We're walking in on what looks like tile, and then we move into carpet, and then we're on to tile again. So there has to be,
You're moving through rooms.
Yeah, there has to be another corridor that is what would allow us to move other areas of the house. So anyway, we finally walk into this, and he whips open this like a visqueen door, and he just whips it open, and there are fans galore going on in this room. 3 or 4, which fans, by the way, do not help you at all if you passed away, just so you know. But I said, "Oh, okay." And he said, "Here's my wife." So I walked over to the bed. She's on a waterbed, for those of you that remember waterbeds. So do you remember waterbeds, Holly?
I have sat on one.
Okay. Did you feel the wave?
I did.
Okay.
I rode it for a second.
Okay. All right. So anyway, she's on this waterbed, and they've lowered enough water out of that bed to where she's like sunk into the center of the bed.
Ew.
Now on her is melted ice.
Ew.
So now she's sitting in a pool of water.
Is she clothed?
She's wrapped in a sheet. So at that point, I don't remember specifically if she was clothed or not. But I said, "Oh, man." And the first thing that came to my mind was another story that I'll tell you about the 5-year-old boy that we fished out of a lake that had been in the lake for over a week.
Oh.
And the skin. Okay. Anyway,
the skin is going to peel off.
It does peel off. For those
and so
of you that don't know.
Pull her off this bed, and you're going to leave skin behind, is what you're thinking.
The only thing she's wrapped in a sheet.
Oh, she's in the sheet.
So I'm pulling the sheet. But as I'm pulling the sheet, the water's following me. So I'm not pulling her from the water. I'm pulling her through the water. Yeah. And the water is, the waterbed has they've emptied the waterbed with so much water that it's taking the form of her wherever she's going. And so water gravitates to the lowest point of resistance.
Right.
So it just keeps following me. And he's, "Oh, hold it. Wait. Is there any way of stopping the water from hitting the floor?"
Is that what we're concerned about here? Oh my God.
And I said to him, "Probably not."
Not going to lie to you. I don't see that happening.
He looks around me and he looks at me and he goes, "Look, it's carpet." And I said, "Yeah, it is carpet."
Carpet dries.
Yeah. And I said, "And she's on a wet soaked sheet." And I just looked at him. You've done this. Uh-huh. Yeah, I just looked at him. And I said, I wanted to say, and it's been 10 days.
Yeah.
Yeah. And 15 hours. So I just said, "No, the water's going to come with her." And he goes, wait. Let me get some towels and put them down at least on the carpet to see what we can do to grab whatever we can. No, listen. I said, "How many pounds of ice have you been putting on her?" And he said, "Well, we started with 7, then we moved to 14. Now remember, no movement of water. So she is she's submerged in the water.
Oh.
So her face is underwater when we get there. And I said to her, "How long has her face been underwater?" And he goes, oh, no, it just happened today. We had this. And he held up some sort of a pillow or some sort of a prop that we had our head elevated on. But today it just, it collapsed or absorbed too much water or something, allowed her head to go back under the water. And I remember thinking to myself, now, if I die, and I wasn't married at the time, but I said, if I get married and my wife leaves me on a waterbed,
I am haunting him for the rest of his life.
Oh my gosh. I was so furious. But you know what? Then he said to me, okay, I don't want to give too much away, but the one thing that he did say was that the reason that they wanted to keep her for the 10 days was for religious reasons. And I ran through my mind and I'm thinking to myself, what in the world?
What religion?
Yes. What religion would ask you to hold a deceased for 10 days? Now, mummification we've talked about, but that's like a 70-day process.
Right.
What religion is asking you to hold an individual for 10 days? And I just kept running it through my mind, religious reasons.
Well, maybe. It started with 5 days, right?
Yeah.
So was it 5 days or was it?
Maybe he wanted to try
his
twice.
Plan always to go for 10 days and just
I have
keep
no idea.
You back.
Maybe he wanted the 5 days times 2, so a double religious blessing. I don't know.
Plus the heavy metal music. That gets her straight to heaven.
Yeah. So anyway, as we're moving her from the bed onto the gurney, and we couldn't lift her onto the gurney or straight from the bed onto the gurney because she was so wet. And I kept remembering and thinking to myself, I kept thinking to myself, I'm so grateful I have someone here to help me. And the problem is that my help was not necessarily help because he grabbed her ankle. He put his arm under her ankle and under her knee. Oh. So how much weight is that, Holly? If I'm now putting, nothing. It's nothing. And so I brought one arm.
I've helped you lift bodies. I always take the feet because it's lighter.
Right.
But also under one ankle and one knee, you're doing nothing.
Yeah. So if you were taking the feet, the best thing to do would be to take the knee and one arm under the buttocks. So then the other person has his arm next to yours, next under the buttocks, and then under the neck.
The heaviest part. Yeah, that's double the best, supported.
Yeah, that's the best part. That's the best way to hold them. But I couldn't convince him to help me by putting his arm under this. I'm not putting my arm under there. I don't know what's under there. And I thought to myself, you're in the wrong industry.
Yeah.
Because if you think this is the worst, it's not.
Pretty rude awakening for you, sir.
So, okay. So here, if you can imagine and listen and visualize, we're lifting her from the bed now onto the gurney. But before we get to the gurney, we're lifting her up over the bed and you hear this like a waterfall because of all the water that's running off of her. Yeah. And so we went in dry, came out completely soaked.
Oh.
And I don't know. I don't remember having a smell. I don't remember that. And if I think I still had my sense of smell at the time, but he didn't complain about it either. The only thing he complained about was getting wet. Mm-hmm. So we put him on the gurney and the guy, the husband, looks at us and he says, well, thanks for coming by. Just let me know when everything's done. I said, oh no, we still have to get paperwork completed and stuff before she's cremated. And he says, oh, I was hoping you'd cremate her today.
Are you kidding me, sir? Absolutely not. Oh my gosh.
I just looked at him and I said, no, we've tried a number of times to get information from you on her so that nothing happens without a signed death certificate.
No.
And I don't have any information to get her that certificate completed so that it could go to the doctor for signature for the cremation to occur. We're still looking at another 4 days. Put her back.
That's what he said?
That's what he asked. He said, then I need you to put her back. I said, excuse me? And my friend who was with me said, sir, we've already loaded on. I don't care. He said, I'm paying you, right? Well,
you're like, I don't know, are you?
Exactly.
We have no documentation. I'm really glad you brought that up because I have a question for you.
Are you?
Cash or card?
Cash or card. And so I said, are you serious? And he goes, I'm very serious. He said, unless we can take a few minutes right now to do the arrangements. And I didn't have any paperwork. Because who in the right mind would, from the funeral, unless I know I'm doing an arrangement at the house, I don't carry paperwork with me. So I looked at him and I said, well, what will happen is if we put her back on the bed and you ask me to go back to the mortuary and then take the information from you over the phone, and then you give us another day to where you're going to be paying for a double trip. And I said, this trip here is, and I don't remember what it was. It seemed kind of high to me at the time. It was like $260. He said, so $520, $600. And I said, yeah. He said, okay. And I thought to myself, oh my gosh, he's going to make me come back here.
You're like, I'm doing everything I can to convince him to not make me ever come back to this house, to this waterbed.
That's exactly right. So he gave me information. I said, what's her full name? And I just went through in my mind what would normally be asked for the death certificate.
Yeah.
And I couldn't remember everything because you just normally just look at it and ask the questions. You don't focus on it enough to remember. Right. So I took what I could. And I said, but still, I need you to sign a certificate or a authorization for cremation. And he said, then I need you to put her back because I'm not letting you take her unless you can guarantee that she's going right to the crematory.
Oh, my God.
And I looked at him and I said,
you couldn't have said this
exactly
4 days
right.
ago?
Yeah. 7 days ago.
7 days ago? Yeah.
And even with it mentioning, but anyway, so he said, so I'm going to need you to put her back on the bed. And I looked at my friend and I said, and I knew I was going to get in trouble if I went back empty.
Right.
So without her. And so I just said, well, how about this? How about if I can guarantee you that she'll be cremated in 2 days, that you allow us to take her with us now? And he goes, nope, that's not the agreement.
Has to be same day.
Yeah. My wife wanted to be cremated the same day she leaves this house. And I said, there was no way I was going to get around it.
How old was this guy and his wife?
She was probably early 60s, and he had to be mid 60s, maybe early 70s. Now, remember, at this time, this many years ago, cremation was fairly new still.
Right.
And so he asked me, he point blank asked, where do you do your cremations? And I said, well, we have a site or a place on site. And he goes, okay, that's why we chose you, because you have a place on site. And so even though the distance is this far, I want to make sure that when she leaves here, that she goes right to the crematory.
On site.
Yes. And so I said to him, I said, well, okay, here's the agreement I'm going to make with you. I'm not going to come back with someone to help me. So you're going to help me. And I said, we will put her back on the bed, and you'll be happy with that. But when I come back, you're going to have to help me to move her onto the gurney. And then I can go ahead and move her, and I guarantee I'll be here and I gave him a time that would allow me enough time to get back and still get her into the retort for the day. So I don't know, let's just say 8:30, because that would allow me to get back to the office and maybe 9:30, 9:45, 10 o'clock cremation. And so I got back and I got docked in pay.
Seriously?
Because I didn't come back with a individual, even though it was the family's response.
What do you do though?
Request.
I know, like, you can't say no, we're taking her.
I know, that's exactly the way I was feeling. So I just said to the guy as we were driving back, I said, you witnessed everything, right? You saw everything that transpired and how he was dead set against us taking her until she could be cremated that same day. And he goes, yes. And I said, I need you to back me up, because my manager's going to think this is a tale of tales. Mm-hmm. And he looks at him and he goes, well, we're wet. What's he going to think? I don't know. He may think we went swimming. Yeah. He may have thought we went swimming. So anyway, got back. So they did dock his pay. They docked my pay. And
that doesn't seem fine. Fair
that's
at all.
Yeah, that's
whatever.
This mortuary is a little different. But so I told him I was going back. And he said, well, you're going to pay for the second run. I said, no, he's paying for the second run. He's going to pay it.
I'm not paying for it.
Yeah, exactly right. So anyway, the 2 days came by. I called him and I said, I have all the necessary paperwork in order to get her cremated today or tomorrow, because I'm going to be there tomorrow morning at 8:30. Remember, I'm coming alone. I'm going to need your help.
You're helping. Mm-hmm.
Yes. So I got to the house and I walked in. The Visqueen was still up. The walls were still there. And I walked into the room where she was located. But now she's no longer in the bed. He felt it important to place her on the floor. And I know. And I looked at him and I said,
this is the man who was so concerned about the carpet getting wet?
Yes.
And now he put her on the floor?
Yes. And she's still wet.
And so it's much harder to lift her off the floor than it would have been to scoot her from a bed to a gurney. Oh my gosh.
You know exactly what I'm thinking. And even though the gurneys are tiered, you can move them from level to level. We pushed it all the way to the ground. You still have a 4-inch clearance. You have to lift a body and a wet.
And now you're hunched over.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And you're wet and you're trying to think, oh my gosh, please don't slip. Because you have to sometimes have to stand on the gurney in order to lift them, a deadlift straight up and then onto the gurney, and the gurney can get slippery. So I'm just running scenarios through my mind, and I just looked at him and I said, well, you're helping me, right? And he goes, yeah. And I just smiled and I said, yeah. But now remember, the second time that we went to the house, the music was still blaring. And I still blaring. And I finally got her on the gurney. He wanted to see the paperwork. So I showed him the paperwork and verification that she would in fact be cremated that day.
Uh-huh.
And finally I was able to buckle her in and wheeled her out of the house, dripping water from that bedroom into down the driveway, down the sidewalk, into the car, soaking the back of the car. And I remember getting out and I said to him, I have one question for you before I leave. And he said, what's that? And he goes, I said, why the loud music? And he looked at me and he said, well, the music that you've been listening to is actually music that she wrote. And I said, what? And she goes,
she wrote death metal? Heavy metal?
She was a composer. And apparently she had written music for some of these heavy metal bands.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I said. Okay. And so sure. He goes, so that was her send-off. Her life's work was what we were listening to. And I thought, oh my gosh, okay. And I said, why the Visqueen? Why the walls? He said,
when you say Visqueen, I don't know that I know what you're talking about. Is it just like a shaded screen so you can't see anything? What is
Visqueen
that?
Is plastic. It's like an 18 millimeter plastic.
Like in the murder rooms that you see on shows?
Yes. If you ever watched Dexter? Do you ever watch Dexter?
Yes.
You have seen Dexter?
I've seen a couple.
Okay, you and I will have to talk offline. But remember when he gets into that killing mode, how that room is all plastic?
Yeah.
That's
Visqueen.
That's Visqueen. Yeah. And I said, why the Visqueen? And he goes, oh, kept the music funneled to where she was at. And I said, oh, no, I listened to it when I was coming up to the house. Oh, yeah, well, that was
really didn't.
No, just so you know. You really didn't. So
you remember how the cops were here?
Yeah, see, I know exactly. So here's another wrinkle in this story. And this is in the book, and I don't normally, I would not want to tell you this otherwise. However, I got her back to the mortuary, and guess what? We got too busy, so she was cremated the next day.
No way.
Yes, and guess what?
What?
We got sued.
They sued you?
Yes, because the whole idea was taking her and getting her cremated the same day. He made note of and so the logs have to be accurate when you cremate somebody.
Yeah.
And the date of cremation was the day after she was picked up.
Oh my gosh.
Well, he lost the case. He didn't win the case. Yeah. But because they felt it unfair for them, the general public, to place
undue burden, undue stress.
On a business that's running business, and you can't dictate to a facility what time and what day you're going to be doing a cremation.
Especially when they've already been dictating what time, what day, and they've pushed it back so many times.
And that was his downfall, because of the amount of time that we kept him, and then him refusing our ability to pick her up when we were there.
Yeah.
So coffiners, let me just tell you this: we just don't like. We don't like you holding on to individuals.
Just don't.
10 hours, 12 hours. Well, okay, that's understandable, but My gosh, 10 days, please.
And when then, you hit the day mark, you know that, just remember this story.
Yeah. So anyway, that's one of the weirdest experiences I've ever had, and I've never had one since, but it was interesting, the water, the pooling of the water, and how he would keep the water, her submerged in water simply by releasing more water out of the waterbed so that the water would continue to pool around her. And it was cold water, so it was really no big deal, but I didn't even look at her to see if she had...
I was just going to ask if
she had the skin slip or anything like that, where the skin was actually peeling off, because she was so wrapped in the sheet. I didn't want to disturb anything. Yeah. But very interesting story for me, and having experienced it. And when I left on the second day to go over, the night before, this guy that was with me says, "Hey, are you going to pick up Mermaid tomorrow?"
Mermaid. Oh no.
Oh, and I said, I hope so. I don't know.
He's like, I'm glad I'm not going.
Yeah, no kidding. Oh boy. But anyway, so even though she was cremated the next day, she was still damp and wet, and where she was at, we put her in the cooler, and there was ice on the floor of the cooler.
Oh my god.
The next morning. So yeah, it was kind of terrible all the way around.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's us. That was today's story, Holly. Any comments on that one at all?
No, none more than I've made.
Hold it. Was it mermaid?
Was it mermaid?
What do you mean maid?
Yes. Mermaid.
All right.
Oh my gosh. That's so strange.
It is strange. And the guy never once contacted the mortuary after the suit. So I have no idea if he was happy overall with everything. Now, I will say this. I did feel a little bad because when we got busy and everybody had left, the crematory had shut down for the day, I remember looking at her and thinking, oh my gosh, I'm in trouble.
She didn't get cremated.
Yeah, I promised him. And so it's just one of those sickening feelings that you get.
Yeah.
You just think, oh, man.
Even if it was unrealistic.
Yeah.
It was still, I thought we could do this.
Yeah.
And no, we can't.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Mm-hmm.
That is wild.
It is wild.
I did not see her being the one that wrote the music. That was a complete shock. Yep. I was thinking that was somehow tied to the religion.
Yeah, I was thinking it's a cult, something to do with a cult.
Yeah.
And so I guess apparently she had written enough music to last a full 24-hour period.
So they had that on loop for 10 days.
They had it on loop for 5 days. But when the opportunity to keep her for 10 days, well, hey, that means we can listen to it for an extra 5 days. Yeah, I would be going stir crazy.
Lucky us.
Yeah, even in the house, when I was in the house, I just kept thinking, oh my gosh, I'm going to have a headache.
Yeah.
So,
and I can't believe that he had a son in the house.
Oh, there was more than just one child. There was more people
in the house?
Yeah, there were more people in the house.
Were they living there? Could you tell?
I think they were, because just by the simple way that he would refer to them. Yeah. He said, yeah, most of us are still having a hard time sleeping, but we realized this is what Mom wanted. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, but it's so loud. Couldn't you just put it in a small radio?
They didn't turn it off when they were sleeping?
No, it was running continually, according to him. It was not turned off until she left the house.
Oh, I would not. No. Yeah. Nope. Couldn't stand for that.
And I know that there were probably, when we walked out of when I was escorted out of the house, the husband followed me, and then right behind him, there were at least 4 other people living in that house, or in the house at the time, because there were 4 other people that came out, and I can't believe
they all went along with it.
Oh. Well, they must have known that it was her wish.
Well, I mean, even if it was her wish, there's got to be at least one sane person that, like, reality comes in, says, Mom died 10 days ago. Even Mom died 4 days ago.
Exactly.
Like,
okay, it's been 20 hours. Let's get her moving.
Seriously.
But I have, my thought was, as I was driving away, I thought to myself, what if you could have just put the music on a small speaker in the room
Seriously.
she was in?
Yeah.
Why did it have to be bellowed throughout the house? I mean, throughout the house.
And not even just that, but loud to the point where you're able to hear it on the street. You definitely could have had a little radio
by her bedside, and I think both parties would have been happy. I mean, didn't have to. Everyone's
Seriously.
yelling as they're out in the driveway. What did you say?
Oh my gosh! Can't even hear the doorbell. Yeah, that's ridiculous.
Okay. Anyway, Coffiners, I'd love to hear what you think of this episode. And if you've ever heard anything like it, please let me know. And if you have heard about it, you probably know the family.
Yeah, I think that's probably fair to say.
Yeah, because there is no way, other way that you would have heard of this story other than that.
Oh my gosh.
Anyway, all right.
Yep, that's it for this week, Coffiners. As a reminder, we have a new email, coffintalkingpodcast@gmail.com. So send your thoughts there, and we will talk with you next week.
Thanks, Coffiners.
Bye.